Great, so hello everybody, and today we're going to look at some of the key stages of our development in the womb to connect with some of the main themes. I may also mention some of the energies of, it's essentially some of the extraordinary vessels of Chinese medicine, but you don't need to know those, you can just connect with the areas in your body. So try, as you listen to, even when I'm just talking about what happens, maybe sense where in your body you feel it, and then I'll guide you through some movements. And so make sure you have some space where you can do movements. And also, if you do have a ball, I'm actually going to use the ball a little bit. You don't have to have a ball, you can just do all fours work. But the ball is quite nice because the ball very much symbolizes the first stage of our journey, which is at conception, when we draw the egg and the sperm of our mother and father together in whatever way we draw them together to come into this single cell, which is us. So that's actually the first theme, that there is a level, I believe, of us choosing, certainly within Chinese medicine, they had a belief, and in many traditional societies, that our soul, that we are more than our physical body, and that our soul decides to incarnate at a particular place in time with particular family lines, but that there's a part of us that has chosen that. So we are more than the two ancestral lines, and we've come to do a particular journey. So see what comes up for you as we go through some of the key stages of this journey. So the first is this coming together, drawing together two lines, and actually even before that, excuse me, why have you decided to be here, connecting with the whole universe? In Chinese medicine, we're seen as the microcosm of the universe. So our first gift or potential is that we are a part of the whole and we have access to the whole. So we have an infinite potential within our being. So just connect with that idea of an infinite potential within your being. And then you draw the two lines together. There's something about that drawing. And so you can use your hands to really bring this and see one side as your paternal line, one side as your maternal line, and you're spiraling and drawing them in and maybe wrapping around. And that creates, in a way, our first spiral. We draw together these two ancestral lines and we start to settle within a destiny as we draw the egg and the sperm together. But we need to remember that for the first week of our life, we're actually independent of our mother. We can grow and nourish ourselves. And so that's really the second gift that we have, that we can nourish ourselves from within. Whatever is going on outside, we have this capacity. Of course, we do eventually need to make a relationship with someone or an environment to nourish ourselves. But for limited amounts of time, we can withdraw from the outer world and self-nourish. And that's quite an important quality or resource that we have. So in terms of our journey into incarnation, we draw the lines together into one cell. The egg, the sperm enters into the egg, and for about the first week of our life, this cell doesn't change in size. And also, it doesn't need anything from the outside. In a natural conception, this cell is within the fallopian tube and it's spiraling. So again, this spiraling movement, and I do this movement with my egg, my fertilized egg, we have that spiraling nature within us because, and we'll do it in a moment in the journey, we spiral, but you could even visualize this already. We're a fertilized egg spiraling through the fallopian tube of our mother. And when we reach the end of the fallopian tube, so when we're spiraling, we're actually quite contained and restricted within a tunnel, essentially. And then when we reach the end of this tunnel, we emerge into a bigger space. So it's actually priming us for birth, that we're in a tunnel, we're moving along like the birth canal, and then we emerge into a bigger space. But if babies are conceived outside the womb, they also have this capacity to self-nourish, and that's why they can survive outside the womb. But at some point, we do need nourishment from outside in order to grow. So in an assisted conception, then the egg has to be implanted back into, but not implanted, introduced back into the womb. Implantation's the next stage. Introduced back into the womb, where it does also its spiraling movement in the womb, looking for somewhere to implant. So while you're listening, you can maybe visualize all of this. And this capacity is, I nourish myself from within, whatever is going on outside me. Remember, you always have that capacity to draw upon your own nourishment. And just a brief explanation of what's happening within this supercell. We start off as one cell that we create that's uniquely us from the egg and the sperm, and we mold. So again, spiraling, this is all happening inside the egg. And then we make 2 of us, and then we spiral into 4, and then we spiral into 8, but they're pretty much identical. It's like there's 8 aspects of ourselves, and these are called totipotent cells, because these cells can make either what will eventually be our physical body, but they could also make our placenta and our amniotic sac and our fetal membranes, and the umbilical cord's a bit sort of cells between the two. And these are often known as being our inner body and our outer body. So the cells actually do start to become different after about 8 cells. They become what's known as pluripotent, because they can't be anything. Some of the cells will be our body, and they're actually called embryoblast cells, embryo. And the cells that become our support structures are the trophoblast cells. Because sometimes people, when they ask me about development of energies and meridians, and in some books they actually say, oh, there's 1 cell, and then that's conception vessel, governing vessel, and then there's 2, and that's conception and governing. But it's not, our energy is not yet that differentiated. There's anything within our body and anything outside our body. So I like to use the words inner body. So we have our inner body, and then we also have our protection. And that's what we're developing in the first week while we're spiraling down the fallopian tube, our inner cell body and our outer cell body, because eventually we're going to stop moving because we need to have nourishment from outside. And so then we're going to implant on the wall of our mother's womb. Implantation. We need to create a relationship with our outer world, the womb of our mother, so that we can take nourishment in from outside, so that we can grow. So it's only once we've started taking nourishment from the lining of the womb of our mother that we can begin to grow in size. And so this is quite an important moment, and it's got a name called nidation, because it's like putting down roots, and it's our outer body cells that will be putting down the roots, attaching, anchoring. So there's very much this anchoring quality in creating relationship, we stop moving, we put down roots, we settle. So we're going to be doing that in the movements as well, this settling. And then the movements are more internal movements. Obviously, before also there are internal movements, but we don't move anymore. Where we put down our roots, where we connect with the cells of our mother's body directly and take in nourishment, that's where our placenta will develop. Our placenta, this organ that we've created from this fertilized egg, which will enable us to access our mother's blood, which goes through the placenta, which comes into our navel. So that's already only the first week after conception. And then we implant, creating supportive relationships to nourish me and help me to grow. And the nature of that relationship with our mother is going to inform other relationships. It's actually a time when many babies or mothers on an unconscious level decide they don't want to implant. Maybe the soul has made enough of a journey and that was all they wanted, was just to be inside a womb spiraling and then go back again to wherever they came. So once we have settled, so there's a settling within ourselves, we start to organize quite quickly our inner body. So now I'm just talking about the cells that will become our body, into a flat line. I think it's quite interesting. We start out as a flat line and we end up with this central line, which we know is very important structurally, our whole central nervous system, our spine, but also energetically. In Chinese medicine, we have the meridians of the conception vessel at the front between the perineum and the mouth, and the governing vessel at the back. The yin, the front, and the yang, but they're not straight lines. I mean, yes, this is a straight line, but there's lots of cells and lots of movements in it, and there is a spiraling within. It's a flat disc, but made up of lots and lots of cells, all busy creating and moving. And it's much more of that movement within conception and governing vessel, within our midline, the memory of this spiraling movement from which everything develops. But also this midline is very fluid. We're still bathed in fluid. I didn't talk about that. Within the first egg, well, within the fertilized egg, when we're going into spiraling into 2 and 4 and 8, this is within water, within fluid. So even before we have created our amniotic sac, we're in fluid. We are fluid beings. And so this midline is very fluid. It's not like it ends up, because from this midline, everything else emerges. And so already at 2 weeks, this flat line has a front and a back, but it also has what will become our future head and brain. So it has a top, and the bottom is our perineum, our future pelvis, our future organs of our pelvis. But it's all very fluid. So I am strong and flexible in my midline, and it helps me stay stable. So whenever we're getting lost or dispersed, we can connect back to the origin of all our structures and all our energies. And we will do that in the movements. And so because our midline is so fluid, in the 3rd week, between these 2 cell layers, so it's more than 2 cells, it's layers of cells, the bilaminar disc, emerges a 3rd cell layer, and it actually emerges from near to the bottom. And there's a very powerful point in Chinese medicine between the 2nd and the 3rd lumbar vertebrae called Mingmeng, or gate of life, gate of destiny. And it's said to be the origin of all energies. And it's very interesting that in embryology, out of this 2 cell disc, you get a 3rd cell layer, or germ cell layers they're called, and it actually emerges from In embryology, it's called the primitive streak, but that's around about where the gate of life point is in Chinese medicine. And it's often called the ignition or the spark. A third cell layer emerges. And so in Chinese medicine, we have conception vessel at the front and governing vessel at the back, but then wrapping around them in quite a spiraling way and connecting to the back and to the front is the penetrating vessel, or the chongmai, or the sea of blood. And it's really, if you don't know so much about Chinese medicine, it's also very similar to the chakra system. It's not a line. Often in Chinese diagrams, it's just a straight line. And even penetrating vessel, it's not done as a spiral. But all these energies are spiraling. That is our inner nature. We're not linear. We're much more spiralic. And also, so you've got the penetrating vessel spiraling around, governing vessel and conception vessel, which are also spiraling, and also around the pelvis, where you're going to create your navel and your umbilical cord. You also have more of a spiraling, and this more of a spiraling will be eventually come the girdle vessel. And the girdle vessel, there isn't really an equivalent in Indian thought, as far as I know, but the girdle vessel is what it says. It's like a big girdle which wraps around us. Now, I talked a bit about our inner body and our outer body, and very much the girdle vessel is that. It connects very deeply within to our physical body, our pelvis, and even our organs, especially our kidneys, our reproductive organs, which I like to call our palaces. But it's also a very protective space, a bit like a cocoon that wraps around us like a girdle. It's outside our body too. And so girdle vessel very much makes a link between our inner and outer body. In fact, as also does penetrating vessel, because penetrating vessel eventually will be in our legs. And so this we're filling out from this flat line in a very spirally way. And we have to remember this line is fluid. And so in our 4th week, we're going to start to curl over to take the fetal position as a fetus. So we'll practice doing that in a moment. We're from a flat line, we become a fetus in the 4th week. And in that process, what was at the front comes more inside, and even things are taken from the outside to the inside of our body. When we're the 3-cell disc, we have at the front a yolk sac, or a vitelline sac, it's called, which is a nourishing sac. And this is also a temporary structure which helps us nourish ourselves while our placenta is being developed. So it's nourishment, and it will contribute to our umbilical cord and to our digestive system. So it's conception vessel outside the body. And at the back of our body, around the area of Ningmen, so this is in our 3rd week, we also have a little space which will eventually become our amniotic sac. So our amniotic sac grows from Ningmen and then eventually protects and surrounds our whole body. And this is really what's happening in the 4th week. We start to curl over, and as we curl over, all the relationships between things changes. Our amniotic sac starts to go around us more. Our yolk sac, part of it starts to come into our body. Also in the 3rd week, we have some cells around the top of our head, which will help to create our heart. And our heart in Chinese medicine is very much related to our head and our brain, but also to the outer world, our shen. Why are we here? And in the 4th week, we start to curl in, and we bring our shen, or our heart, our physical heart, into our body where it's protected. But it's very close to our head, because if you think in the fetal position, our head sits on our heart. And then this is when we start to curl over in the 4th week. And then during the 4th week to the 8th week, we're in our fetal position and we start to organize around our navel. So this is really the physical center of our body, but it's where we receive everything. And that's how we're going to remain until the rest at the end of the pregnancy. And then when we're born, we're activated, we open up, but we take another year to come back to be kind of like a flat line again. So we re-establish this flat line, this top and bottom. We have legs and arms now, but our flat line is much more stable physically and much less fluid, because this center line has to support us physically to stand upright. So it's interesting, then we go through we take a year to uncurl from the fetal position to come upright. So the memory of this midline in the womb is, I am fluid and watery and connected to the seas and the fish. We're a bit like a starfish when we're in the womb. Everything's coming from our center. We receive from our center and then we go back to our center. I maybe should just add in our arms and our legs start to develop. First, we have our hands. So our hands are very close to our heart. In Chinese medicine, points that relate to the heart are in our hands. And then eventually our arms develop and our hands move away a bit, but obviously not that much when we're in the womb. And our hands, or our buds, limb buds, our upper limb buds, emerge in the 4th week. And our lower limb buds, our feet first, emerge in the 5th week. And then gradually our arms and legs form. But we have actually quite developed hands and feet before our arms and legs are developed. And of course, when we're in the womb, our hands are very close to our heart and our feet are very close to our pelvis. So we spend the rest of the time in our fetal position. So now I've explained all of that, we're going to do some movements. So in the movements, you might first, in fact, want to connect with the space and your connection to the macrocosm, to everything. You are a unique expression of the whole. You can say that internally. I am a unique expression of the whole. And I connect with my infinite potential. And then feel that you're drawing, as we already did a bit this movement, because spiraling is very important. It's an important part of our nature, that you're gathering the energy of your maternal line and your paternal line. You're drawing together the egg and the sperm that created you. So really feel a nice spiraling movement. You're drawing them together and you are drawing them together. Not a random thing. You are part of this whole dance of the egg and the sperm coming together to create you. So feel this, how you create and how you weave together this being that is you. And you create, so doing whatever spiraling movements you feel inspired to do as I talk. I'm giving some ideas, but really listen into your body and feel, what is your body drawn to do as I say these words? And you come together, so I will bring my image of the egg, in a fertilized egg. So you might want to hold an egg or just carry on doing the spiraling movements with your hands. And you've drawn the maternal and the paternal line together in the egg. The sperm has entered the egg. And over the 24 hours after conception, you create a whole new being that's you, that is from your parents, your two ancestral lines, that is uniquely you. A new being. You've drawn your spirit into this cell. And this is now the potential of you in this body, in this life. So really feel that unique journey that you've chosen in this life. What have you come here to do, to learn, and really feel the spiraling movement of potential? And then we're going to be moving, you're moving down the fallopian tube, and within this egg, you're not growing in size, but your cells are falling apart. This one cell becomes 2 cells, become 4 cells, become 8, 16, 32. But you gradually start to form cell masses, which are your inner body, which can only be your inner body, the inner cell mass. And you form cells that can only become your outer body. So really feel this difference, your inner body and your outer body. And feel how you're carried along down the fallopian tube. So you could do this movement standing, like I'm doing, moving along, wiggling through. Feel that you're surrounded by the walls of the fallopian tube. Essentially, you're in a tunnel, moving along, being carried by the fluids. So even you have fluids around you that are helping you move down through the tunnel. And then when you reach the end of the tunnel, after a few days, you emerge into a bigger space. This bigger space is the womb. So feel, it's a big space. You might even feel a little bit lost in this space as you spiral around. There's space all around, and you don't know where, you're not being guided through a tunnel anymore. You're just looking around and feeling, initially a bit lost, but gradually you start to feel, you're drawn somewhere in this space. But where are you drawn to? So gradually feel where you're drawn to. And this is the part of your mother's womb where you're going to implant and anchor. So you might find, if you've been standing and doing these movements, that you might want to be rolling on your ball. If you don't have a ball, then you could be wiggling and spiraling, and you wiggle and you spiral and you move, and you're gradually finding, where do you want to settle? Where are you going to implant? Because in this first week, you nourish yourself from within, whatever is going on outside. But you're beginning to need energy from outside. You need nourishment to grow. You need to create a relationship. So now feel that you're searching around, looking for where to implant, where to make your nest, where to settle. So take your time, but gradually start to feel drawn to somewhere, to the earth. This is your first earth. And you feel your movement is slowing down, and gradually, you start to settle and your movement stops. And you feel like you're burrowing deep into the earth, because you are. You're burrowing deep into the lining of your mother's womb, going deeper and deeper, burrowing down and settling. And you're eventually going to be completely immersed within the womb. And so allow yourself to disappear, to be surrounded by your mother's womb. Stop moving, to put down roots, and to start to draw nourishment from outside, from all around. How does this feel as you settle and draw in nourishment? And as you draw in nourishment, you start to feel your body filling out. You're actually now getting bigger. Your inner body is getting bigger. And your inner body is becoming a flat disc. So you might want to stay on the ground. In fact, the front of your disc is turned inwards to your mother's womb, and the back of your disc is more outside. The yin and the yang. The yin is supported and nourished and protected, even as a flat disc. Be aware at the front that there's part of you that's also still nourishing you, your yolk sac, around the navel area. And at the back of you, in your lower back, in this place of Ming Men, is your future amniotic sac, which is going to protect you. And you might want to stay on the ground, really disappearing into your mother's womb, or you might want to start to come up. Don't stay too long in all fours, because we want to really feel like we're still a flat line. We're beginning to fill out though, as we take in nourishment to become a 3-layer disc. But feel this filling up. You could be on the floor, you could be sitting, but you could come back to standing if you want, or just kneeling, and feel that you're filling out. You're filling out, getting a 3rd layer that's spiraling around the midline, and that's going to eventually create your feet before your legs. That's eventually going to spiral out from your shoulders. But first, you're a 3-layer flat disc, either kneeling or standing. Because at this point, remember, above our head, my hands can represent my heart, the cells, some of the early cells of my heart. And you might want to do a spiraling movement with your hands and with your whole body, just spiraling and feeling your heart connecting still with the space. You're still connected, you're always connected to the whole, but you still feel quite intensely that connection to the whole. With your heart cells that you spiral And you're also filling out, so you're feeling a spiraling around your midline as you start to fill out in the front and in the back. And this filling out comes very much from Ming Men, from the lumbar spine. So you might even want to do some spiraling movements, side to side ones, or really moving your whole body in a sort of spiraling movement. So really feel how you're filling out and spiraling, creating this third cell layer. Spiraling from your lower back, spiraling from your head. Just go into some spiraling movements for a moment, just feeling what you need to do to feel like you're filling out. And there's this spiraling around your midline. Use your hands, use your pelvis, use your feet if you want. And then you gradually, you're still a flat line, but now in the 4th week, you start to curl. And so you bring the cells of your heart down below your head, more to your throat. And you start to curl over. So again, you could be doing this kneeling or sitting. Then you gradually curl over. And your head comes in. You could do this on all fours if you want. Anything to really feel you're curling in, and your amniotic sac is gradually coming all around you, so you feel protection all around you, this protective space. And you feel, you start to become more aware of your navel. You might even want to go into squatting or all fours as you curl around into the fetal position. You start to organise around your navel. You're still in a very watery space. Over the next few weeks, all your organs are going to develop, all your other organs. So much happens. You develop into a miniature human being, rolled around in the fetal position. Your hands and your feet, your arms and your legs. So you could sit if you want and be aware of your navel. Be really aware of your umbilical cord. By the end of these 8 weeks, you're receiving your energy through the umbilical cord. Your placenta's been growing along with you. And so you start to feel this connection with another aspect of yourself, your placenta, which is connecting you to your mother, which is bringing in food and nourishment to you. So really start to feel nourishment coming in more and more from outside, more and more through your navel, and then going in to your legs and down to your feet and back, because you eliminate through your navel as well. Whatever you don't need, you can let go of. So it goes down your feet, nourishing them, and then taking anything you no longer need back up and out through the navel. And the same for your pelvis, into your pelvis and then out again. The same for your heart, into your heart and then out through your arms to your hands, and then back through your arms to your heart, and then to your throat and your brain, and then from your brain back to your throat, back to your navel. So just spend a bit of time really feeling this movement from the center out. You could even, if you're comfortable on your pelvis, do the movements, very much movements that babies start to make when they're born with their physical body, of opening out and then drawing back in. So opening out with your limbs, with your head and with your pelvis, and drawing back in. You could do a similar thing more in a sort of star position like this. It's obviously it's much harder to do with both legs at the same time, but feel this drawing in and opening up, so drawing back into your center. And then this is how we spend the rest of our time in the womb, gathering into our center and opening out a bit like a starfish. But let your head also open up and gather in. And you could do it standing if you wanted to, opening up and gathering in, opening up, gathering in. But try and be a bit folded. You open up and then you fold over. Also, if you have a ball, you could do it. It's quite nice on the ball because you get that really fluid feeling, and you can gather in and open up. And this is how we spend the rest of our time in the womb, really organising around our navel. And we connect with our fluid nature and our starfish memory. So stay with these movements for a little bit longer. And then you gradually might want to start to settle. Because of course, babies in the womb sleep as well. And they'll have periods where they're more physically active and periods where they're more resting. So I'll give you a few more moments to be more physically active. Although if already you feel you want to be a bit more resting, then you can start to slow the movements down. Because we're gradually going to come in to a meditation, basically being still and just allowing all the words that I've been saying and all the movements that I have been evoking to just work within your body more on an unconscious level, and working with whatever they need to do in your body now, in this present moment. So now I'm going to close my eyes and just come to resting and being still. So join me as and when you wish. If you feel you still have other movements that you want to carry on exploring, then please feel free to do that. Listen to your body and what you need now. But yet at some point, gradually come to a more still, resting position. See if you can feel the inner movement within your body now, within your cells now, within your blood now, within your fluids now. Just allowing your body to do whatever it needs. I want to pay attention, especially to your midline, your internal midline, between your perineum and your brain. You might want to pay more attention to your navel, deep within in your navel, inside your body. Or maybe you feel the memory of your umbilical cord. You feel a connection outside. Maybe even memory of your mother. Maybe you feel memory of your amniotic sac and where it originated from, the origin of your amniotic sac in your lower back. Or maybe even before or around the early beginnings of your amniotic sac, the primitive streak and the origins of the third cell leg. So you can feel every cell in your body spiraling and dancing. And remembering their connection back to first cell that you were. The origin of all your energy. As you remember your connection to your potential. And so sit here for as long as you need. I will end the recording in a moment, but just to say that when you want to come back out, really try to feel the connection between all these vibrations and your original cell and the you of the present moment. Because you in the present moment have the memory and the potential of all the different stages, phases of your development and growth in the womb. And every cycle of life that you have lived since this first cell. Staying with your potential. Thank you for sharing this practice.